Hi there everybody, this is David, and last week we got a whole bunch of different games announced with the Sony State of Play, the Summer Games Fest, the Tales of Festival, which was just an announcement of an announcement, the Xbox Showcase, the Steam Next Fest, all that kind of good stuff. But there's a lot of games coming out, and you have to ask, what are the good ones? So here I want to give you 7 upcoming games that I will definitely be purchasing, games that you should probably look into and be on your radar. But we're only going to be looking at games that have release dates this year, so no Persona 4 revival here. Also, I do have a free code for the Nintendo Switch, a giveaway for the game Monster Patch, and this is a monster collecting cozy RPG kind of similar to Pokemon. So just kind of comment and say which upcoming games that you want to buy, and that will enter you for the drawing for the game code for Monster Patch, and I will be picking a winner in 48 hours. And as always, please be sure to sub to my channel because I'm trying to level up this year. Thank you so much for that. And now let's go ahead and get started going over some of these great games, starting with Mado Monogatari FIA and the Wondrous Academy. This is coming out for the PS4, the PS5, and the Nintendo Switch on July the 29th. And I know, hell has frozen over. There is a Compile Heart and Idea Factory game that I want, that I am looking forward to. This is actually a long-running series, and it's been around since 1990, and y'all might know it as Sorcery Saga, because that's what it was localized as, but it's actually Mado Monogatari. It was also known for the Puyo Puyo games, which were then localized as Kirby's Avalanche on the SNES, or Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine over on the Genesis. So this game, it's a mystery dungeon type of game, and it's been over like 10 something years since we've gotten another entry in this series, so I am totally looking forward to it, and it does feel good to see some like genuinely different gameplay mechanics on display here. FIA can choose from 4 different classes: the warrior, the archer, the thief, or the mage, and then dive deep into these dungeons and go exploring, not just by herself, but with a party. And it's kind of like, you go down 5 floors, you warp out, you go down 5 more floors, you warp out, that sort of thing, those types of games. And I do think that they are a whole bunch of fun. You kind of explore in like real time and everything, but then whenever you hit an enemy, you go into like a different screen, and there you can do magical attacks and special attacks and things like that. It has more of like an action-based battle system. It does look really freaking cool, if I do say so myself. Next up on the indie scene, we have Quartet, releasing August 26th for the PC, then later on in this year for consoles for the PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. This is a turn-based RPG from the developers of Shadows of Adam, and it looks great. I love Shadows of Adam, and I have played a demo version of this game, an early access version, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. It starts off kind of similar to like a Saga Frontier or a Wild Arms, where you have to go through different scenarios. And there's 4 different scenarios, each consisting of 8 characters. So each scenario has 2 characters, and then there's 8 characters total. And then they go and they meet up, and they go off on an adventure together. Whenever they are all together, you have 4-person battles, but you can swap out the characters mid-battle if you want to, kind of like in Breath of Fire 4, so that looks really cool. And then the enemies or the characters in reserve will gather up their MP, and then you can have them come back in and blast the crap out of enemies and all that kind of stuff. So always use your best attacks and all that. Has a world map, has traditional dungeons, beautiful pixel art, towns, hidden areas, airships, all that kind of good stuff, because it was inspired by Final Fantasy VI. Next up, and we are going in release order by the way, is Trails in the Sky the First, coming out on September 19th for the PS5, the Nintendo Switch, and the PC. So this is a remake of the very first Trails game that started off, the whole Trails in the Sky, and then Crossspell, and then Erebonia, and everything else. So this is going back to the basics, going back to the very, very, very first one that I first played 15 years ago, back in 2010, over on the PSP. I remember waiting outside the GameStop in order to pick up my collector's edition of this game because I heard so many good things about it, and I actually liked the Gavhard trilogy over on the PSP too, so I did want to see what these games are all about because they said that the Gavhard trilogy weren't all that hot, but these Trails games were really good, and they were not joking. This follows Estelle and Joshua, two aspiring bracers who kind of want to like make a name for themselves and all that, as they go off and explore Liberl and, you know, help out the help everybody out. It looks like they're going to be kind of like retconning certain things so that things make a bit more sense, you know. Whenever they were writing Trails in the Sky, they weren't obviously writing anything about Trails in the Cold Steel or Trails Through Daybreak or anything else like that, so it's going to be kind of like putting everything together, and that looks really freaking cool. Next up is another remake, but oh my gosh, it is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. Ho! Coming out for the PS5, the Xbox, the Switch 2, the PS4, and the PC. This on September 30th. I first played this game in 1997 on the PlayStation 1 whenever I was in high school, and I fell in love. I cannot say enough good things about this game. It is so freaking good. If I were to rank all the Final Fantasy games, including like spin-offs and stuff, this game would be at the top of that list. It would beat out Final Fantasy V and 6 and 9. This game is just so fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about it. And now it has an enriched script with fully voiced dialogue, improved graphics. It says that it has quality of life updates like new difficulty levels, revamped UI and autosave, all sorts of different things to make the game more accessible to newcomers. Hopefully it has better JP stuff, because I remember having to grind on Mandalia Plains forever just to be able to get through Dorter Trade City. So hopefully they do something about that. We shall see. But this story is fantastic. It said that it's going to have like new storylines and things like that. So I am hoping against hope, that we're going to see some new chapters maybe, or maybe like a different path or scenario system where we get to see things from like Delita's viewpoint. I would just love that. The next one that I want to talk about is Digimon Story Time Stranger, coming out for the PS5, the Xbox, and the PC on October the 3rd. And I've got to say, lately I've been getting into these Digimon games. I never watched the anime or anything else like that. I never watched the Pokemon television show either, so I was never really into all these monster collecting games or whatever, but lately I've heard so many good things about them that I've started to get these Digimon games, and I'm really liking them. So this one's kind of cool, and it's an adventure that spans across the human world as well as the digital world, and it is turn-based battles. So that's pretty cool. And the storyline premise is also kind of neat too. It's kind of like a Shin Megami Tensei kind of twist where like it's a apocalyptic world. The world is kind of like exploded or whatever. Everything is dead. But then our characters reawaken 8 years in the past. So they're trying to figure out like what happened to the world. Why did the world collapse? What is going on right here? And you have to journey between the human world and the digital world to kind of figure it all out. And there's 450 Digimon that you can collect, and it just seems like a really, really fun time. Later on that month, on October 30th, we have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake. Yay! Probably my most anticipated game of the year, even more than the Final Fantasy Tactics Remake. Like, this is insane! This is coming out for the PS5, the Xbox, the Switch, and Switch 2, as well as the PC. I first played Dragon Quest back in 1989. Yeah, I know, I'm old. I was 7 years old, and I played it. I could barely read, and I really, really, really liked it. It was so much fun. I told the story. I was interviewed by the Dragon Quest team, actually, back in LA, and I told the story of how I got into Dragon Quest. I was visiting my grandmother, and my uncle was there, and he had a whole bunch of NES games and all that kind of stuff, and he had Dragon Warrior, and I pretty much sat on his bed and played Dragon Warrior for 2 weeks straight while I was up at my grandmother's house. And when it came time for us to leave and drive on back to Georgia, he's like, hey, do you want this game? You've like been hooked to it, you know, for the last 2 weeks. I'm like, yes, give me the game. So So then, like, the rest is history. And this is a compilation of 1 and 2. And there are some changes because I got a sneak peek access of all sorts of different changes that are here. Now we have skills in Dragon Quest. The hero can actually do skills. Same thing in Dragon Quest 2. The Prince of Midenhall can use kind of warrior skills and things like that. The Prince of Cannock has like the zap line of spells. The Princess of Moonbrook can, do like nose for treasure and things like that. There was a reference to the Zenithon trilogy that I stumbled across too. If you want to hear more about this game, go back and watch that video of my preview event on it because I went really, really in depth on it. I cannot wait for this. And finally, we have The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon. This one does not have a release date, but it is slated to release this fall, so this year. So I figured I would include it. Coming out for the PS4, the PS5, the Switch, and the PC. And this is setting the groundwork for the actual conclusion of the Trails series. This series has been going on for 13 frickin' games. Like I said, since 2010, for 15 years now, this series has been going on, and they're finally starting to wrap it up and, figure out how they are going to conclude this story. They already said that they're like 90% done, so we don't have many left. And it kind of offers a mix between the structure of Daybreak 2's story and Reverie's story, where you can follow whichever character you want to, Reen or Kevin or Van. So you can follow whichever hero you'd like to going through this story, although Reen's and Kevin's story are much shorter than Van's story right there. And the result is basically going into the series history and kind of seeing what's going on and seeing things that happened that we know about, but from like a different point of view to kind of recontextualize what we already know about the series. And it seems to be freaking fantastic, and I cannot wait for it. But now I've got to ask y'all, what games that I just listed are you going to be getting? What games are you looking forward to? Be sure to comment and let me know, because just by commenting and letting me know, you'll be entered to win a Switch code again for Monster Patch. So be sure to let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.